But the first thing that I noticed, which would have been awesome and really would have been a big difference in how people perceived before the film came out, was the name of the film. Not Rise of Skywalker, not something generic like that, but Duel of the Fates. Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates. Now, I'm going to adjust my mic real quick. I don't have this in the best position. I'm new at this. I'm still trying to do this live-ish type thing, so bear with me. Stick with me. I'm going to stick with this. Oh yeah, I think that they could have added $20-30 million to opening weekend just by having a better name for the film, getting people more excited. Duel of Fates, man, yeah. I already saw it twice in the first 2 days, but who knows? I might have seen it more. So the film opens at the Quat shipyards, and basically what it is there's BB-8 and Rose and Finn and Poe, and them as a group are trying to infiltrate this shipyard where these oppressed people or slaves, or however you want to say it, are working for the First Order and making ships. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to sabotage this thing. And Rey shows up, which obviously gives them a huge advantage. Their plan, though, this is where I don't know if I'm really down for this, and I think this would have changed. But their plan is to send explosives into the power shaft that delivers raw ore into the ring. Sounds like a big explosion. That sounds like that's going to kill a lot of people, including those oppressed slaves that were building those ships. That sounds terrorist, not necessarily resistance. But you could also argue that destroying an entire Death Star full of some of them just contract workers, it's pretty similar anyways. The plan goes wrong, which definitely makes sense. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been the most dramatic movie if they would have had this huge win in the beginning. Then it goes on to say that Rey, disguised as a Tusken Raider, is revealed to have created her own weapon, a double-bladed lightsaber hybrid of her staff and Luke's cracked saber. Wow, that would have been cool. I mean, literally, for her to... I mean, if you haven't seen Star Wars Rebels, Ezra has a lightsaber that's also a blaster. It's kind of a hybrid type thing. I think having her, the iconic staff that she had in the beginning, the staff that honestly kind of explained a little bit why she could handle the lightsaber so well in the beginning. I mean, she already knew how to use a weapon that was semi-similar, but to have that be part of her lightsaber, I think would have been really cool. Her disguise as a Tusken Raider. I saw a comment somewhere else. Maybe it was even in this thread. But Tusken Raiders are, have we seen them in the Star Wars universe outside of, outside of Tatooine? Would her dressed as a Tusken Raider be a disguise, or would it make her stand out? And that's a good question. So they all battle, and Poe, Finn, Rose, Rey, and BB-8 are able to steal a Star Destroyer and escape. So yeah, they kind of would get a win there. They weren't able to stop the First Order from creating more ships, but they steal a Star Destroyer, which would give them something to work with. A ship called the Knife 9, which is the ship of the Knights of Ren, arrives on Quat, and Atasca Ren, which must be the name of one of the Knights of Ren, kills Admiral Vaughn for his failure. So they're not fucking around. I mean, this is this guy allowed for the Resistance to steal a Star Destroyer. You don't even get a chance to explain. You failed. Doesn't matter whose fault it was. Bam, you're dead. Next scene is on Coruscant. Coruscant, remember that planet? Really important in the prequels. Was where Palpatine it had that was his capital when Palpatine was the Emperor. So Coruscant's a very important planet in Star Wars that somehow didn't even make it into the sequel series. Which, I mean, unless if I'm totally missing something from the movies, I don't think they even mention Coruscant, maybe. But at this point, it's no longer a vibrant city. The new structures are built atop the Art Deco structure of the Old Republic. Occupied by the First Order now. They have a Citadel Palace there, which makes sense. I mean, the First Order kind of, they idolized the Empire. Why would they not want to build their capital basically on top of where the Empire, their base of power when they were at their full strength? Citizens are scavengers now. So basically, there's probably not a whole lot of industry. People are probably struggling to live. It's probably just a industrial version of Jakku, maybe. Hux is now Chancellor Hux, and is addressing Bisk Kova, the traitor who helped Resistance steal Star Destroyer. Kova is executed with a light blade guillotine. So what this tells me is it's basically lightsaber tech used as a guillotine. So kind of sounds like that would have been pretty cool. Hux and Commander Selleck have a meeting with several alien warlords. First Order has allies. So they're working with, one thing about the Empire is they were kind of xenophobic. They didn't really... humans were the only ones that were really allowed to have power. That's why Thrawn was so abnormal with the Empire. Being a guy that was a chiss and basically blue-skinned human, but not human. So if they're working with aliens, they must really want to win this entire thing and wipe out the Resistance. They are aware of Rey being the last Jedi. Council wants to know, where is Kylo Ren? He is missing. Hux only knows he has gone searching for something of great power. So it's kind of a, Hux has to basically rule. He has to be the one to run the First Order, while Kylo Ren is still the person that has the most authority. So I could see in this instance where Hux would be pretty pissed at Kylo Ren. I mean, he's off on these missions, related to the Force and the dark side, while Hux is, he has to solve all the problems. Next scene is Mustafar, another planet that, man, why did we not get more of Mustafar in this sequel trilogy? Just ridiculous. I mean, just a little side note. Why did they have to continue to create new planets, new species, and all that? Why couldn't they reuse some of those? Give us some kind of show that these other planets still have significance. Give us something to, they were trying to give us these nostalgic feelings. Then do it. So, yeah, Mustafar should have been in the Rise of Skywalker a lot. I mean, I think there was in the beginning, but it should have been there a lot more. Kylo Ren is alone except for a Darth Maul-esque droid. I don't know what the heck that would mean. He has stubble indicating search has been for a long time. Because, people can't get stubble after a couple days. Ren is being haunted by Luke's ghost. This is another missed opportunity. There should have been a lot more Luke Skywalker in Rise of Skywalker. Why did we not get at least a couple scenes with Luke haunting Kylo Ren, trying to make Kylo Ren or Ben or whatever feel bad? Missed opportunity, plain and simple. Luke says, "This is where the Darth path leads, an empty tomb." Kylo retorts, "Where did your path lead?" Not the greatest dialogue, I guess. Luke is trying to convince him to go back to Leia. Kylo says, "I'm going to be more powerful than any Jedi, even you." So it shows that he still has a lot of respect for his uncle. He just hates him. In Vader's temple, Kylo finds a Sith holocron, which reveals a hologram of Palpatine. So this is another thing that didn't make much sense in Rise of Skywalker. They had a wayfinder when there's already something within Star Wars canon that's called a holocron that they could have used. Some of these opportunities to link canon together and give us something familiar and give big, fans like myself and the rest of you out there, throw us a bone. And they miss those opportunities. I mean, it just literally did not make sense for them to have a wayfinder in Rise of Skywalker when they could have just had a holocron that we would have understood what it meant. Recording is for Vader, this recording of Palpatine. Palpatine has a contingency for Vader if Luke kills him, meaning the Emperor. Vader's to take Luke to Remnicor system to see Tor Valum, Master of Sith / Palpatine's teacher. Now, I've seen people, I've watched a couple videos on reactions to this, and they make a good point on that is, didn't, Sidious already have a master in Plagueis? And I kind of, I kind of see this a little different. I don't think this is meaning that Palpatine had somebody that ruled over him or was his boss. I think there still was a rule of two. I think he was the Sith master, and I think that Vader was his apprentice. When I see this as more as somebody that's really knows a lot more about the dark side, who is able to teach Palpatine things. And with that being said, if Palpatine fears that maybe he will end up dying and that Luke kills him, he may have decided to set up a contingency plan where Vader could then learn from this, what was his name again? Tor Valum, and that way the Sith can continue on, basically forever. Okay, so after scanning Kylo, the holocron explodes and releases red lightning, which burns Kylo, who screams. You can see that. Next scene, Resistance base on Kor Alaf. Leia is introduced as she feels what's happening to Ben. Chewbacca and Lieutenant Connix tell Leia that the Quats team is back. They're shocked to see a Star Destroyer, which has landed onto the planet. There's a funny moment with Rey using mind trick on First Order officers who were still on the ship. We end up getting that. It's kind of funny. It was probably one of the best moments of humor in Rise of Skywalker. Rey confides in Finn that she doesn't feel like she has what it takes to be a Jedi and can't live up to everyone's expectations. Finn asks her if she still senses Kylo. Jealous much? Rey confesses she's been having nightmares. Finn asks if it's Kylo. Rey says she can't explain their connection, which makes sense because in a lot of ways none of us can explain their connection. It's a force. It's force working, its own little magic to make things happen that needs to have happened, maybe? I don't know. Finn, you have to shut him out. He can't change. It's too late. Rey says, it's never too late to change. You taught me that, Finn. That doesn't make any sense. Finn was a stormtrooper who, at the first time that he had to do his actual job as a stormtrooper, which was to kill innocent people, he fled and didn't do it. No. Kylo was responsible for all kinds of people's deaths. He did evil things. So no, there's no equation there. That you can't equate Finn changing from failed stormtrooper, to a resistance leader, to Kylo Ren changing from being evil and falling to the dark side to potentially changing. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Resistance realizes that the Star Destroyer still has some of its weapons. tanks, ties, etc. Only missing piece is an army to use it. So they got some weapons to use, which is pretty cool. Rey, researching the Jedi text from Octu, discovers that under the Coruscant Jedi Temple, there is a communication system called a Force Beacon from the Old Republic. This beacon can send a signal to 50 planets. They plan on using it to get allies. First Order can't stop it since it predates Imperial tech. Rey, hope is all we have left. So basically, and when they say Old Republic, I'm assuming they mean from thousands of years ago. I guess it can make sense. I mean, if somebody was trying to send Morse code to somebody right now, the chances, are even our great, military intelligence may not pick up on that, or it might take them a little while because it's tech that they're not used to having to look for. Force Ghost Luke appears as Rey trains. Luke is pushing Rey to get stronger in the Force while he's pushing Kylo to let Ben out. Makes sense. Kylo makes it back to Coruscant. Face is damaged. Mandalorian armor is smelted and is being applied to his face. He confronts Hux and belittles him, saying he doesn't need titles. So, kind of looking at this a little bit, I'm not sure what that would look like. I mean, so his face has been burnt. Is it burnt to the point where he needs like a mask? Is that what it is? He's going to have a permanent mask on his face that's made of the scar, the metal that Mandalorian armor is made out of? It makes sense. And I could see Kylo Ren kind of belittling Hux that, despite the facts that Hux probably is a chancellor, he's the one that's running the First Order, Kylo Ren's, belittles him and saying, you don't need a title, just do your job. Okay, so Rey, as she's training with Luke, says, balance, the dark suffocates the light, light extinguishes the dark, over and over again. How is that balance in the Force? Honestly, I've been asking that question myself for a long time. I honestly thought in the end of the Skywalker saga that they were going to realize that, basically that, balancing the Force wasn't getting rid of the dark side. It was not, and it's not embracing it completely, but it's knowing that it's there and being able to control it and using it when you need to, but not fully committing to it. And that's not what we ended up getting. It ended up being Palpatine dying at the end of Rise of Skywalker, and the Force is balanced because there's no dark side left, basically. This view that Rey has at this point, or would have had in this script, that balancing the Force wasn't about the light defeating the dark, because that's always going to go back and forth, would have allowed for a different ending and maybe given us something new instead of it just feeling like we just had a rehash of what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi. And then Luke says, I know that anger. My father had it too. So he's lecturing, Rey, as Rey's getting mad because she sees the Force differently than what Luke does. And he's bringing up that, I don't know if he's trying to say that, if you keep thinking like that, you're going to go to the dark side. I'm not sure. So Rey says, so says my master and his master before him, 1,000 masters so eager to tell us how to live. Makes sense. I mean, the Jedi were able to be... The Jedi Order was destroyed because of their hubris. And Luke said so much in Last Jedi. So it makes sense that, she would say, I'm going to learn from you, Luke, but I have to do things my way. I have to do things, use my gut to do things as I think that they should be done. The rest of the exchange between Luke and Rey is basically Rey trying to back away from being a Jedi. She admits she is no one, and Luke trying to convince her. He says the Force is speaking to her. So, I don't know. So let me read this again. Rest of exchange between Rey and Luke is basically Rey trying to back away from being a Jedi. And that makes sense. I don't think she ever really felt comfortable with the concept of it. She knows, she admits that she's no one. So she's fully buying into what Kylo Ren told her. And Luke trying to convince her and he says that the Force is speaking to her. So he's trying to convince her that she just needs to follow what the Force says, which, doesn't really mean that she has to become a Jedi. Let's just continue. I'm not even sure on that last one. So we go back to Kylo. He and Hux continue to snipe at each other. Kylo says he's leaving again, but not before telling Hux the power he discovered will make destroying planets insignificant. Kylo's last order to Hux: find the Resistance, wipe them out, leave the girl to me. So he's, Hux is a military guy. He believes in what he can see, which is we have the overwhelming might when it comes to equipment and weapons and stuff like that, forces, and Kylo Ren has the Force. I think he's looking for a new way of utilizing the Force that will make him more powerful than any Jedi or Sith has ever been. And in his belief, Hux believing in the military part of it is foolhardy. And he's basically saying, do your thing, but don't worry about it because I've got this. Even though he does, even with that, he tasks Hux with going out and finding the Resistance and destroying them. So apparently this discovery that he's going to make that will make destroying planets insignificant isn't going to be enough to take out the Resistance. That's why you need Hux to do it. So next, the good guys are broken up into two teams. We have Rose, Finn, R2, and C-3PO. They're going to Coruscant to light the beacon to send out a message to try to get help. We have Team B, which is Rey, Poe, and Chewbacca. So at this point, they're splitting up the core team again, which happened in Rise of Skywalker 2. I mean, they got some pretty good moments together, but eventually they got broken up. So Team B is going to a planet to find someone to help Rey figure out what she needs to do. And then a note, yes, his description is that vague. So there must be something that she needs to do that the Force is telling her maybe, or that she's seen in the script that, even maybe Luke overlooked when he was reading the Jedi scripts, and something that she in her heart feels is the right answer to end this conflict between the light and the dark once and for all. That's kind of where I see that going on that. Okay, next thing, Kylo is going to a Sith planet, Remnicor. Before he leaves Coruscant, he takes Vader's mask and says he understands Vader now. Kylo says, "You allowed love to cloud your judgment," and he throws Vader's mask off of a balcony and it shatters. Well, buddy, if it wasn't for that love that Vader had, you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't have been born in the first place. But it kind of makes sense. I mean, Kylo had to kill his own father because he still loved his father. And if he wanted to fully embrace the dark side and become the ultimate, Force user of all time, he knew that he couldn't have something like love and attachment cloud his judgment. And then destroying Vader's mask, hey, I'm done with it. I'm no longer going to idolize this guy. I'm going on my own path. I'm my own supervillain. I don't need to be the second coming of my grandfather. Then Leia stays at the base overseeing the Resistance. So she doesn't get in on the fight, it looks like. And remember, this is before Carrie Fisher died, so a lot of this would have changed because they would have had to change the script. Who knows how much, but they would have had to change it. And then the second thing with that is it's interesting that they would have her stay at the base when she would have had, at that time, it's not like she couldn't have filmed scenes in combat. She definitely could have. Before Rey leaves, she and Leia have an exchange where Rey says she believes there's still good in Kylo. Leia is skeptical, but Rey believes in her Jedi training. So she doesn't want to be a Jedi, but she still believes in her Jedi training. Okay. Leia, you're not like my father or my brother. You're new. Whatever happens, remember the Force chose you, Rey. Your story isn't written by anyone else. And in some ways, that message made it through to Rise of Skywalker, which, her, even after she found out that Palpatine was her grandfather, I mean, she still got to write her own story. So I think that's one of maybe the ideas, if this script is legit, one of the ideas that made it through to the end. And then next it says, the First Order tracks down the stolen Star Destroyer to Koroloff, and the Resistance escapes. So probably a close call. Well, this is maybe where Leia gets into a little bit more of the action, because if she stayed at the Resistance base and had to leave, then maybe it thrusts her more into to where she actually has to get involved. So Team A, which is Rose, Finn, and BB-8, and C-3PO, I believe, successfully infiltrates the Jedi Temple and turns on the beacon. So, good. They cut to different places around the galaxy receiving the signal, including a Bosk cameo, which would have, if they would have had this cameo in it, would have confirmed that, or they at the very least would have made it so that they couldn't kill Bosk in The Mandalorian if he ever shows up in The Mandalorian. But that would have been a pretty cool cameo. I guess the next question, though, realistically, just because they said it's a Bosk cameo, doesn't necessarily mean that, if they showed a Trandoshan, that would be Bosk. So, I mean, how do they make it obvious that was a Bosk cameo? Was there somebody that says, hey, Bosk, you hear the beacon? Or whatever? I don't know. It is then cut off by the First Order, so some of the planets must have got it, but not everybody. Team A then flee into the underbelly of Coruscant, which could be cool, as long as they didn't, have that be too much of the plot. We don't need another Canto Bight situation where they get on a side quest for way, way longer than they need to. Team B are being pursued by the Knife 9, which is the Knights of Ren ship, and eventually reach the planet of Bonadon. Kylo reaches Remdicor and confronts Tor Valum, who is 7,000 years old, alien of unknown origin, spindly, intense, sinewy muscle, very Lovecraftian. So, man, they could have, the designers could have had a lot of fun creating that. Kylo begins training with Valum. There's an ode to in the Empire Strikes Back cave scene where Kylo fights Vader, and fight is brutal and Kylo loses, which probably feeds more and more into his anger. On Bonadon, Poe takes Rey to see a seer who can pull information out of memories. The seer pulls a star chart out of Rey's mind from her visions with Kylo. Knights of Ren show up and fight Rey in a lightsaber battle. She defeats them and Team B escapes, which I'm cool with that. At this point, she's had more time to train with Force Ghost Luke, and she probably would be more powerful. Plus, as far as we know, as cool as the Knights of Ren are, and even though they probably are Force sensitive, they're probably not to the level of a Jedi or Sith. I mean, especially if they're still following somewhat a rule of two type of situation, where Kylo Ren is never going to train them fully as an apprentice. He's going to train them as assassins. Both Rey and Kylo eventually get to Mortis. Now, if you've never seen Clone Wars, Mortis is a very important planet. And it is a planet where it's mystical. It's almost like the origins of the Force. And they're in the storyline, there's a father, a son, and a daughter, with the father being the balance of the Force, the daughter being the light side, and the son being the dark side. Really cool storyline. If just look up Mortis, go to the Clone Wars. I mean, hell, you have Disney Plus, right? Go watch it. Rose is captured and tortured by the First Order, but is able to escape. Once again, she's getting a lot more screen time than what she did in Rise of Skywalker. Leia asks Lando if he will organize the smugglers and fight the First Order, which brings Lando into it. That's cool. Finn, R2, and C-3PO start a citizens' uprising on Coruscant around the First Order's Citadel Palace. So, them getting down into the underbelly of the Coruscant, getting around with the scavengers, I guess, now, and all these people that are down on their luck, they convince them to kind of rise up, which, I'm not sure how well that would work. I don't know how much ground troops Hux would have on the planet at that point. But at the same time, if they're having to deal with this uprising amongst the citizens, that's still going to make it a little more difficult for them to take care of the resistance once the resistance gets there. Leia brings her forces to Coruscant to battle the First Order. So, yep, she's getting into the action. Massive space battle, ground battle, Return of the Jedi style, the works. Chewie flies an X-Wing, which would be cool. Have we seen Chewbacca pilot something? I mean, he's been the co-pilot several times, and I think he has piloted the Millennium Falcon, but for him to be in one of those smaller ships, I'm not sure. But yeah, so the huge battle on Coruscant. I mean, and the Skywalker saga, on a planet that was important throughout the entire saga. Rey and Kylo battle on Mortis, which is cool, using Force energy they could pull from each other. Mortis would be a place where you'd be able to do some crazy stuff with the Force. At some point, it is revealed Kylo killed Rey's parents. Wow, that's a twist. At the behest of Snoke. Yeah, Rey's not going to be happy about that, is she? Towards the end, Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda appear as Force ghosts to save Ben. Save him from what? But are unsuccessful and Ben is extinguished, so Ben dies at this point. So, what are they saving Ben or Kylo Ren from? Are they trying to save him as far as convince him to go to the light? At this point, is Rey so angry that she goes to the dark side and they don't want her to kill him? I'm not sure, but they were unsuccessful. The other part of this, too, is, so it's Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. Where the fuck is Anakin? It sounds like this script was going to make the same mistake that the Rise of Skywalker did. Was you have this one character who's the main character of the entire saga. He's the chosen one, and you're not going to really involve. I mean, this is the perfect scene. Would have been the absolute perfect scene for them to have Hayden Christensen in it, and for Anakin to make that one last appearance. And so they don't really have too much more to say about it after this, but that the Resistance won and the First Order loses, which makes sense if this is the final film of the saga. And then there's one final note that Han Solo did appear in the script and does confront Kylo at some point, just like he did in Rise of Skywalker. This is a lot to take in. First off, I liked Rise of Skywalker. There were a lot of problems I had with it. This script would at least solve some of those. It would have made it a different film. It would have... I did want to see this saga end with it not being a dark versus light, but them understanding that for there to be balance, there had to be both. I still would love to see in the future at some point that being the actual explanation for how they need to balance the Force. I do not know if they could have ended this film and this saga with the grandson of Vader not being redeemed. And I know I was happy with how they did it in Rise of Skywalker for the most part. I just don't... the story of Star Wars is one of redemption, and I don't know that they could have ended it with him just dying while still being evil and never turning back to the light. So I'm not sure that that would have stuck in the script. I like the fact that Rose gets more playing time. I like the fact that Kylo Ren decides to completely disavow his grandfather and his grandfather turning back to the light and his grandfather not being able to complete his mission. I like that, but at the same time, I do think that at the end, Anakin should have convinced Ben that he's making a mistake and to turn back to the light. I don't know how I feel about Rey still being no one. Before I saw how they handled her in Rise of Skywalker, I thought that that was probably the right way to go. If she's a no one, then that means anybody could be a hero. By her being Palpatine's granddaughter, it kind of kills that vibe in the movie. But I thought they did that part of it very well. And if she is nobody, as much as some of the Mary Sue like arguments or BS, I mean, when people say how is she able to handle a lightsaber so well in the beginning, duh, she used a staff pretty well before she even remotely even thought about the Force. But some of the other things, as far as her learning how to do a mind trick without anybody ever teaching her, I understand those things, and I think her being Palpatine's granddaughter really helped explain that. So overall, gosh, there's so many things. Seems like this is a lot of wish fulfillment. Makes you wonder if, this Robert Meyer Burnett kind of just made this entire thing up and said, I can get a bunch of views on my YouTube channel by saying that I have some sources on this, and let's kind of give people what they want and give them my fan fiction on what I would have done with the movie if it was my movie to make. But in some ways, I think this could have been a better movie than what we got, and I think it would have been one that, this Rise of Skywalker is only going to end up doing a little over $1 billion. Maybe some of these things, if they were done this way, would have made it so at least got up to that Last Jedi level. But the whole thing is we're never going to know. What we can do is we could kind of look at the reaction to some of these choices that we as fans make. And Disney, while they can't do everything fan service and they shouldn't remake the entire thing because fans were disappointed, they should learn. The one thing about Marvel is that they, let's just put it this way. The fans, the Star Wars fans out there who believe that Star Wars is done and it's never going to be great again or whatever, get the fuck over yourself. This is a franchise that has done very well, and before Marvel came around, it was the biggest franchise in all of media. And Disney was able to take Marvel, which was still somewhat beloved, but not beloved as much as Star Wars, and turn it into the biggest media franchise. You're telling me that you don't think Disney can redo things, can change up their structure, and do the same thing with Star Wars and put it back on top? This is literally, they're an ownership group that made some decisions that, and they had different job to do with Star Wars versus Marvel. With Marvel, they had people that were fans of the comic books, and they have some people that were fans of some of the movies that came before. Some people hated some of the movies that came before, but there wasn't this overall beloved storyline. There weren't these characters that would have only been done one way, that they had to make sure that they did it right. With Marvel, they could take chances and they could do whatever the hell they wanted with it, as long as they put the name of that character up there and had him have similar powers as what they were in the comics. With Star Wars, they had so many people to try to make happy. They had to be very, very careful with trying to get too crazy with the characters that people knew. Some people could argue that they did that anyways with Luke in Last Jedi, but they had a different job to do with Star Wars than what they had to do with Marvel. And as much as I liked all three of the films, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker, they did fail at putting together an organization the same way they did with Marvel. So when people say that Star Wars will never be great again, they're completely dismissing the opportunity that perhaps Disney will do the same thing and will put the right people in place. Perhaps they'll get all these great minds that they have, whether it's Kevin Feige to help build the structure around it, Dave Filoni and Favreau to help decide on the creative direction, and even George Lucas to come in and give him his points and give him advice on where the story should go next. So I guess I'm going to end this with just saying, you know what, I'm excited for where Star Wars could go next. And I really hope, especially the only reason that this script or this script leak that may not even happen is such a big deal right now is because of the Rise of Skywalker not being as great as it should and not doing as well as it should. Disney has to take a look at this entire thing and realize they have to change up how they do things. All right, that's it. That's all I got for you today. May the Force be with you.